He cheated. Now what? Hey guys, Michael Pizzulo here, gay men's therapist in West Hollywood. So a lot of people, gay or straight, man or woman, doesn't matter, have gone through infidelity in their relationship. And a lot of people, after going through something like this, whether it's your husband, your partner, your boyfriend, they don't know what to do. So I want to give you 4 phases to walk through to help you process this. So first and foremost is to acknowledge your experience. So likely, if you've been cheated on, you've been lied to, you've been gaslit, you've been bamboozled, you feel betrayed. So you want to start with acknowledging A, that something happened to you, and B, how you feel about it. So I think writing this down can be really, really powerful, going from beginning to end. To chronicle the entire relationship, when you met this person, how things evolved, and then how the betrayal was eventually revealed, right? And then how you feel. If you feel angry, if you feel insecure, if you feel jealous, all those sorts of things. Just to get very clear about what happened. I think the truth is that, cheating and affairs are really traumatic. Breakups are traumatic in general, but especially if they end because of some sort of betrayal, they're really difficult to process. So first and foremost, get some clarity about what happened. Then you want to get a witness. Get someone to corroborate your story. Get someone to validate your story. So what you want to do is find a couple people in your support network who you can share what happened with and have them validate your experience. And by that, I don't mean that they have to necessarily, agree with everything that you say or tell you what to feel or anything like that. But you want to lay out the whole sequence of events. And it's so important and so psychologically necessary to have someone say, I understand how you feel, or I also would feel this way. If I was lied to and cheated on and so on and so forth, I would also be upset. I would also feel confused. I would also feel betrayed. So, and I think the other thing too is that very often when these things come up, the person who's cheated on feels embarrassed or insecure. They may want to then keep the story a secret. And so they're missing out on this really important component of having someone validate their experience. So I definitely elicit a witness, get someone to corroborate your story is very important. The next thing is that you want to, for the third thing, you want to do some grounding. When we experience trauma or stress, we don't, try to dive in and rip things apart and make a bunch of changes right in the beginning. First and foremost is you seek safety. And by that, I mean you seek grounding. So you've been thrown a curveball. Something has destabilized your life, your relationship, obviously. You want to do things that are going to elicit as much grounding and calm and peace as possible. So avoid, making major changes, doing things that are, risky or can be dysregulating in and of them, just by themselves, and focus on doing things that ground you. And these can be very simple. It could be like, going on a nice trip, a nice retreat, seeing friends more often, doing some nice dinners, doing more self-care, things like that. And these might sound really simple, but I think the most important thing is don't do anything that's reckless or risky because you're already feeling destabilized. And this isn't the moment to add in more destabilizing forces into your life. I think often people do. They feel out of whack and so they want to do something kind of dramatic to realign things. And I think what happens is they end up feeling more disoriented. And it's not even necessarily that what they did was wrong. Say for example, they go on like a ayahuasca retreat or whatever it is. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just not the right moment to destabilize yourself when you're already feeling destabilized. You want to do things like that when you're feeling your most grounded so that you can get as much out of them as possible. And then the last thing is really to look inward. I think that our relationships are our biggest teachers. And so whatever has gone on in your relationship is an opportunity to learn about yourself. And it's not about blaming yourself or saying that you deserved it or that you should have known better or anything like that. But it is an opportunity to really do an autopsy on the relationship, not to, absolve them or really learn about them or anything like that, but to learn about yourself. So, and this is where it's going to be really important to work with, a therapist or a coach or a mentor or a friend or something like that, where you can really go through the relationship from beginning to end and really tease apart, how did I get here? What was this person like when I first met them? Was there anything that would have suggested to me that they might not be trustworthy? Did I ignore red flags? which I know in retrospect it can be easy to see, and maybe in the moment they weren't. And again, it's not about blaming yourself, but really thinking through of how did this situation come about? And again, the goal is not to blame or shame yourself, but to learn and to grow, because ultimately you don't want history to repeat itself, right? And sometimes we just get involved with someone who's a bad actor, and we couldn't have seen it coming, and there isn't really a whole lot to learn from it. But oftentimes there is. Maybe there was some sort of element that felt familiar, or there. And we know this too, that we tend to gravitate towards relationships that are familiar in both positive and negative ways. So was there some sort of element from my childhood that I gravitated towards? I mean, likely there was, because that's just human psychology. But thinking through those patterns, and the reason you want to do this is because it's an opportunity to learn about yourself, and B, really just so you don't do the same thing again, because history does tend to repeat itself until we learn, until we grow. So I would think of the last step as being the longest one, and the time of self-reflection and growth, but also the one where you have the most power and the most agency, because this is about you and figuring out, what did I just get involved in, and then how can I make sure that my future is going to look different? So those are the 4 things I would do if you are a gay man who's just been cheated on and you're ending a relationship. Again, very applicable to anyone, but I'm speaking specifically to gay men. That's who I work with the most. And most importantly, though, to really acknowledge that it is traumatic. When your whole worldview is, thrown up in the air, it messes with your head. It's confusing. When you thought that the world looked a certain way, now it looks different. It's really disorienting. And so just really start by acknowledging and validating that that's real, and it's okay to feel just out of whack and confused for some time, but that you will find your grounding again if you approach this the right way. So hope this was useful. Let me know your thoughts. If you want to, learn more about me, you can check out my website, michaelpizzulo.com, and schedule a consult if you want to talk directly, or you can subscribe as well to get some more of my content. And let me know what you think, and let me know what other topics I could cover that would be useful to you guys. So thanks for watching.